Teddy Riley invented a whole genre, but the group that was supposed to carry that sound into history was quietly set up to fail. Let's talk about Guy, the trio that brought New Jack Swing to the mainstream, inspired a generation of R&B and hip-hop acts, and then completely imploded. From the outside, they were smooth, fly, and unstoppable. But behind the scenes, there were lawsuits, betrayal, industry sabotage, ego wars, baby mama drama, and one unhinged Vlad TV interview that flipped the legacy on its head. The truth? Guy wasn't just broken by the business. It was built on dysfunction. The real songwriter was kicked out before the first album dropped. Their manager was a hustler who claimed credit for songs he didn't write. Teddy Riley was stuck between loyalty and being robbed. And Aaron Hall? Let's just say his personal life reads like a cautionary tale in caps lock. This is the story of how Guy helped create a movement and got chewed up by the very industry they changed. If you were alive in the late 80s or early 90s, you probably thought Guy was untouchable. They had the street swag of hip-hop, the silky vocals of classic R&B, and a futuristic sound that felt like it came straight from a Harlem spaceship. Radio loved them, black culture crowned them, and if you didn't try to mimic their outfits or dances, were you even outside? But here's where the illusion kicks in. Most people believed Guy was a tight-knit brotherhood. Three young black men who came up together, made history together, and rode the wave together. But that version of the group, it never really existed. In fact, the very man who helped form Guy, Timmy Gatlin, was already kicked out before fans even knew his name. His vocals, still on the first album, his face, still on the cover, but by the time the music videos hit BET, he was gone, replaced, silenced, and if you looked a little closer, things didn't add up. Why was the lineup different on tour? Why were certain members getting all the shine while others barely got a shout-out? And why was the group's manager listed as a member in the album credits? Fans assumed everything was running smoothly. But in reality, Guy wasn't a brotherhood. It was a business deal with cracks forming before the ink even dried. And what happened next? Made sure those cracks turned into chaos. Let's get into it. Here's the hot take no one wants to admit. Guy was doomed before they ever had a hit. And the craziest part? It wasn't just industry sabotage. It came from the inside. Let's start with the man who helped birth the group, Timmy Gatlin. He brought in Aaron Hall after hearing him sing in a department store. He convinced Teddy Riley, his childhood best friend, to help produce their early demos. And he co-wrote almost every single song on that debut album. Timmy was the glue. But guess what? Right before the album dropped, Gene Griffin, their manager, handed him a contract that basically robbed him of his rights. Gene listed himself as a writer and producer on all the tracks, even though he didn't write a damn thing. When Timmy refused to sign, Gene did what shady managers do best. He kicked him out of the group he helped create. No warning, no loyalty, just, you're out. Teddy didn't stop it. Aaron didn't stop it. And Timmy? He says he cried like a baby, twice. To make it worse, there was no time to re-record or redesign anything. So fans got an album with Timmy's voice, Timmy's words, and Timmy's face. But not Timmy in the videos or on stage. It was like he got wiped from existence. And that shady manager, Gene Griffin, he slid himself into the group credits. Literally listed himself as a member of Guy. The actual lineup read Gene, Teddy, Aaron, and Damian Hall, Aaron's brother, brought in as Timmy's replacement. So before Guy had their first platinum plaque, the foundation was already cracked. Timmy was gone. Gene was calling all the shots. And Teddy? He was already getting played. Remember, this is the same Teddy Riley who helped make Keith Sweat's Make It Last Forever and walked away with just $1,500. No royalties, no back end, nothing. That kind of betrayal? It doesn't just hurt, it changes people. And for Guy, it changed everything, because what looked like unity was really just survival. And survival always comes with consequences. So now you've got a group built on shaky contracts, fake credits, and one massive betrayal. What could go wrong, right? Everything. Because once the fame kicked in, the egos exploded. Teddy Riley was being pushed hard by the industry. He had the beats, the vision, the magic touch. Labels started calling him the face of New Jack Swing. But guess who wasn't feeling that? Aaron Hall, the voice, the swag, the guy with the church-trained pipes that made girls lose their minds. Aaron wasn't about to be anybody's sidekick. According to Damian Hall, Aaron's brother and the group's late addition, the industry made a very clear choice: elevate Teddy and fade the rest. And that rubbed the Hall brothers the wrong way. You could feel the tension in interviews, on stage, behind closed doors. It wasn't if Guy would fall apart. It was when. Meanwhile, Teddy was about to blow, but not in the way he wanted. His trust in Gene Griffin completely backfired. The same manager who booted Timmy was now allegedly stealing millions in publishing from Teddy, and Teddy wasn't having it. He filed a full-blown lawsuit against Gene, accusing him of straight-up robbing him blind. Now pause for a second. Think about that. The man Teddy trusted to protect him from shady industry snakes was the snake all along. And while all this was happening, Guy's second album, The Future, went platinum. But instead of riding that success into legendary status, they imploded. No dramatic press release, no farewell tour, just silence. The group split, cold and quiet. Aaron blamed Teddy. Teddy blamed Gene. Damian said everybody got caught in the crossfire. And Timmy was already watching it all from the sidelines like, told y'all. So while fans were slow dancing to Let's Chill, the group was burning from the inside out. But trust, we haven't even touched the wildest chapter yet. Let's talk about baby mama beef, underage dating rumors, and one of the messiest interviews in R&B history. Okay, this is where things go from music industry messy to straight-up reality TV chaos. So fast forward to 2014, years after Guy's heyday, and Aaron Hall pops up on Vlad TV. Now, if you've seen any Vlad interview, you already know. It starts calm and ends in flames. But Aaron, he skipped the calm part. Within minutes, he's calling Teddy Riley a square in New York, boasting about his you-know-what, and bragging about how every R&B dude in the 90s witnessed the magic in the locker room. No, seriously, he said that. But the real bombshell? Gloria Velez. Aaron proudly told Vlad he bagged video vixen Gloria Velez back in the day. Said she was so sprung, she tattooed his name above her honeypot within 3 days. But what he failed to mention? Gloria was just 16 years old at the time. And Aaron? He was 30. Let that sink in. And if that wasn't wild enough, he also admitted she gave birth to his son, also named Aaron, the same son he later used as an excuse for being late to anger management, which led to a probation violation, which landed him 11 months in Rikers Island. Whew, you still with me? So of course, after that interview aired, Gloria Velez lit him up. She went off in the press, called him an abusive deadbeat, accused him of having a drug habit, and said he hadn't seen their son in 15 years. And sis didn't stop there. She dropped a diss track called Eulogy. Yup. She rapped about burying Aaron Hall's character for good. Aaron denied everything, claimed he tried to pay child support, claimed he wanted to see his son. But the damage was done. R&B Twitter dragged him. Blogs ran with it. And suddenly, Aaron Hall wasn't just that dude with the voice, he was that dude from that interview. And just like that, the legacy of Guy got a whole new chapter. One no one asked for. And speaking of legacies, let's talk about what happened next, because the story doesn't stop here. After all the chaos, lawsuits, and public embarrassment, you'd think Guy would just call it quits. But nope. Like every good R&B group from the 90s, the reunion bug bit hard. And by the early 2000s, they were back. Or at least trying to be. In 2000, Guy dropped Guy III, their first album in over a decade. Sounds exciting, right? Except it fell flat. Fans were hyped, but the music didn't have that same spark. Critics called it watered down. And sales? Meh. The only song that made any noise was Dancin'. And ironically, it became their biggest pop hit. Not Let's Chill, not Groove Me. Nope, Dancin', a song that sounded more Blackstreet than Guy. Teddy was already making moves elsewhere anyway. After suing Gene Griffin, he bounced back fast, launching Blackstreet, working with Michael Jackson, and basically becoming that producer. Meanwhile, Aaron Hall tried to go solo, releasing 3 albums in total, including the oddly titled Adults Only in 2005. He swore it would be his last project, claiming the industry never gave him his flowers and he was done trying. Spoiler, he wasn't done. In the same interview, he hinted at a comeback under a new persona called EK, which fans guessed stood for emotional king or ego king, depending on how shady you felt. Either way, the EK project never dropped. What did drop? A bizarre reality-style video called Aaron Hall's Dog Rehab, where he trained dogs like he was the Caesar Milan of R&B. No, seriously. Man went from slow jams to sit, stay, roll over, and Damian Hall, he kept the brand alive with scattered performances, sometimes with Teddy, sometimes without. In a 2022 Instagram post, he even teased a new tour and said, "Guy never left. We just evolved." Fans were hopeful, but there's been no album, no single, and no solid lineup ever since. So yeah, the comebacks were real, but the music, the magic, the moment, that was long gone. And now let's look at where they all ended up, because some stories didn't end in scandal. Some just faded quietly. So where did they all go? Let's start with Timmy Gatlin, the forgotten founder. The man who helped build Guy got kicked out before the group even blew up. But he didn't disappear. Nope. Timmy stayed in the game, just behind the scenes. He went on to write and produce for R&B royalty like Ralph Tresvant, Stephanie Mills, and Belle Biv DeVoe. By the 2000s and 20s, he'd shifted into an executive role as vice president of urban music at Pop Life Global. Still working, still relevant, just not in front of the camera. And in every interview, he's humble. But you can tell that pain of being cut from Guy still lingers. Damian Hall, on the other hand, became the unofficial spokesperson for the group. He was never part of the original three, but he was there during the platinum years, and he's done his best to keep the Guy name alive. Whether it's pop-up performances, nostalgic Instagram posts, or teasing reunions that almost happen, Damian is the glue trying to hold the legacy together. In 2022, he even attended Teddy Riley's birthday party. So yes, there's some peace between members. Teddy Riley, of course, remains a legend. Despite the lawsuits, betrayals, and the stress of carrying a sound on his back, he's still in demand. From being sampled by Gen Z artists to producing for K-pop groups like EXO, Teddy evolved. And in recent years, he's leaned into his legacy, doing versus, talking openly about his regrets, and honoring the culture he helped shape. Still no new Guy album from him, though, just silence, and maybe a few cryptic posts. And then there's Aaron Hall. Once hailed as the voice of the streets, Aaron has kept very low-key in recent years, probably because of all the backlash from that Wild Vlad TV interview and the Gloria Velez drama. He hasn't dropped new music since the 2000s, hasn't done a big tour, and hasn't shown up at any major reunions. Some fans speculate that his reputation just couldn't bounce back. Others think he's battling personal demons we'll never fully understand. The truth is, Guy should have been a dynasty. They had the talent, the timing, the sound. But between the ego, betrayal, broken friendships, and business drama, their legacy was fractured. They're legends, but in a cautionary tale kind of way. And that brings us to the final word. Because what happened to Guy says more about the industry than it does about the artists. Guy didn't just make music. They rewired R&B. They were bold enough to bring street edge into soulful melodies, confident enough to let gospel vocals ride hip-hop beats, and innovative enough to give the world an entirely new genre, New Jack Swing. Teddy Riley was the architect, Aaron Hall was the voice, Timmy Gatlin was the heart, and yet, the group that should have been kings got caught in the trap that swallows so many black artists. Shady contracts, ego wars, and an industry that loves your sound but doesn't protect your name. They had platinum plaques and Billboard hits, but they also had lawsuits, betrayal, heartbreak, and headlines that overshadowed the music. To this day, there's no closure. No final album, no big reunion tour, just fragments, nostalgic interviews, sporadic shows, and fans wondering what could have been if the business hadn't gotten so dirty. They changed the game, but couldn't escape it. And maybe, just maybe, that's the real story of Guy.